Hi there, YouTube. Gamer Ninja here. Sorry about the lack of videos. Between laryngitis and my recording software being absolutely stupid, I had to reinstall it, reconfigure it, do a bunch of random shit with it, and then it still wasn't working. Or rather, I should say it was working about 50% of the time, and half the time the audio cut out halfway through the video. This is hopefully the final take of this particular video. Um, Between a new job and everything, videos will be coming out sooner, actually, because I'll have a little bit more downtime. Hopefully it'll be more consistent, and I'm hoping that no other major changes to myself or my situation will let me keep doing these videos on a slightly more steady basis. And I keep saying that, but things keep happening that keep impacting me. I just started a new job, so I had to sort of focus on that nonsense. And, well, enough on that. So, what we're doing today is we're going to speak about the balanced teams in Pokemon. Now, we already talked about the stall teams, and then we also mentioned in a previous video about hyper offense teams. And standard balanced teams are somewhere like smack dab in the middle. They are a team that attempts to stall out hyper offensive teams and break down stall teams. And whether it does that job or not is entirely dependent on you as a player. It is a very popular team archetype because most players try to do the best of all worlds type of deal. As you climb higher up on the ladder, though, you will find that more specialized teams will generally have an easier time doing what your team wants to do. So this is a very good foray into the competitive scene, but as time goes on, you will most likely want to try to define your style of play a bit more. That being said, there have been plenty of balanced teams that have topped the ladder. It is definitely possible. It is one of the more flexible archetypes of teams. It is entirely dependent on the pilot to finagle winning situations for the team, because you don't have as many resources as a dedicated stall team on defense or a dedicated offense or a dedicated offensive team in terms of offensive options. You just don't have that many Pokemon. So let's get into a very fun build. I wouldn't recommend you climb too high on the ladder with this, but you could probably get fairly high with it depending on how well you do. We open up with Tyrantrum. Tyrantrum's just a very big threat. You see a Tyrantrum and your initial impression is this thing is going to hit like a truck. And it will, between the Choice Band, its ability, it has Head Smash, it has Outrage. Everything on this Pokemon just screams, I'm going to hurt a lot. And it's bulky enough that it can sort of take a singular shot. You don't want to use it defensively, but this thing can wreck through walls. It will destroy Chansey and Blissey and all sorts of things. Next up, we have Mega Scizor, and that ability is supposed to be Technician, so give me 1 second here. There we go. So, Mega Scizor is sort of a linchpin of the team. It serves dual purpose, both defensive and offensive. This is actually probably closer to what I would call a bulky offense team, but it has enough fast assault Pokemon that I would hesitate to call it even that. So I'm classifying it as a standard team, although you could make an argument for being a bulky offense team. It's a very fine line between those two. And I'll get into that in the next video. So, Scizor's, between its priority, Sword Stance, and Roost, brings a lot to a team. Scizor is a fantastic Pokemon. If you don't know what Pokemon to run, a Scizor could probably fill 8 out of the 10 gaps that you might have on a team. It is a fantastic Pokemon, and posting only one real weakness to fire types, and that's pretty easy to cover. But I digress. With U-turn, you get switch momentum, bullet punch for revenge killing, sword stance if something lets you set up on it. Bullet punches will hurt like a truck with technician, U-turn, and U-turn. It's just a really good Pokemon. There's not much more to say. It hits hard. It takes hits. It just works fantastically. Next up, we have Weavile. Now, Weavile is one of my favorite Pokemon. And I have this sort of love-hate relationship with it, actually. I love what it does. I hate seeing it on the enemy team. Because this thing can destroy a team. But at the same time, it has enough checks that it's not even close to being broken. You just have to sort of keep it in the back of your mind with team building process. Boasting an, I believe, a 125 base speed. Yeah, base 125 base speed and a 120 attack. It will destroy most starting Pokemon. And given the fact that a lot of the more popular Pokemon are very weak to both Dark and Ice, it is a top tier threat. And I'm kind of glad to see it because it used to get a lot of shit. Especially when it was introduced when there was no physical special attack that was stab on it, really. It didn't have a physical ice type move because physical ice type moves didn't exist in Gen 4 because of the generation split. And dark type moves were all special as well, so it was really, really kind of screwed because it had to work off of a really bad special attack if it wanted to get its stab bonus. But you would have to use something like Return, and it was just a very lackluster Pokemon that had fantastic stats. It just couldn't use it. Now, 2 gens later, it is an absolutely fantastic threat, checking so many opening Pokemon. And this isn't even the optimal moveset that you can use. You could replace Icicle Crash if you wanted for something like Brick Break if you don't want to deal with Tyranitar, or even Low Kick if you don't want to deal with Heatran. You can do a lot of different things with it, and it has a big enough move pool that it can check so many different things. So sometimes you could just sort of send it in on like a Heatran, and the Heatran will get scared out because it doesn't know if you have Brick Break or not. Mind games in a balanced team are absolutely essential. I mean, it is how you win games. You fake out your opponents, sometimes quite literally with a move fake out, and you just completely put them on the back foot at all times. You can't let their team get set up or situated. You can't let the hyper offensive Pokemon dictate trades. You can't let the stall Pokemon sit there and get bulkier and bulkier with setup moves like Calm Mind. You have to be the proactive player, and especially in a balanced team. Because again, you don't have the resources to deal with an extended game. But anyway, moving on to the next Pokemon, we have Seismitoad. Now, Seismitoad is our defensive wall. It has a fantastic typing with water and ground, boasting a weakness to really only grass types. And it's also our Stealth Rock setter. Stealth Rocks are really important in every team. If you're not running Stealth Rocks, you probably should figure out a way to run them. They're fantastic. It shuts down so many Pokemon ridiculously hard. So, next up, there's not really much to say about Seismitoad. You could replace this with a lot of other Pokemon. What defines a standard team over a offensive team would be the presence of dedicated walls, like Seismitoad here. Seismitoad is a very defensive Pokemon. It can hurt, and it does do a lot of annoying things between Knockoff and Scald, but it is a defensive Pokemon. Next up, we have Latios, and again, Latios sort of is more of a bulkier Pokemon, but it is definitely an offensive threat. Between Draco Meteor and Psyshock, it'll wreck through an opposing team, especially with that Life Orb there. And then we have Rooster Defog to provide sustain and utility if we don't like our hazards too much against us, because we have a Weavile and a Zapdos. And clearing hazards are really, really important, especially if you've managed to kill their hazard setter. I've said this countless times before, but the person who can keep their hazards up has an immense advantage. So, to sort of emphasize this, moving on to the next Pokemon, we have another defog user in the form of Zapdos. Now, Zapdos is a Pokemon that I love, and I love that I have this set here. And it works really, really well with this team. With Scizor, you have the Volt Switch, or the Volt Switch and U-turn combination. You have more sustain with Roost. Defog to help clear hazards even more. And then Heat Wave is there to catch some surprise kills on Pokemon that want to switch in on you. Like Ferrothorn, who otherwise doesn't care about you at all. Heat Wave is a fantastic option, too, against opposing Scizors. And even against the rising popularity of Mamoswine. So again, what sort of makes this team work? It's really just a massive tempo team. To put it in card game terms, you dictate the trades. You have to dictate the trades. You have to be proactive. You have to take risks with a balanced team. You have to think way, way ahead. And you don't have as much leeway as a stall team. And you don't have the massive number of threats to really keep going if your threats don't work. If you lose Tyrantrum and Weavile, and you're just in a huge amount of trouble because you just don't have as much ammo as a hyper offense team. So, what do I think about standard teams? I love playing them because it really feels like I am in control of the battle. Because I am the reason why my team wins or loses. More so than a matchup. Now, that isn't to say that stall teams don't require a degree of finesse. And they certainly are tricky to play. I hate playing stall teams. I can play stall teams. I don't like playing stall teams. But stall teams have their own issues. They can have... Depending on the build of your stall team, you are completely shut out of the game. Or half your team can be shut out of the game depending on what your opponent is running. Not even counting any outplays that might happen. And with a balanced team, that doesn't really happen. You usually have some way you can finagle a trade or a situation to be favorable for you. So... in the end, this jack of all trades, master of none type of deal might be the most difficult type of team to play. But it's also the most rewarding personally to play because you can make almost anything work in it too. Like, I'm using fucking Tyrantrum on this build. And Tyrantrum, in the eyes of many, is a very bad Pokemon, but it serves its purpose. It blows holes through teams that lets other Pokemon have their fun. And this isn't the end-all be-all build either. It is the most flexible build type. It is the most common build type at the same time, but you'll never run into the same exact balance team. And even if you do run into the same exact balance team, the way the player will pilot it can make the game 100% different. And that's not necessarily the case in any other team archetype, other than maybe bulky offense. And again, bulky offense and standard have a very, very small difference to them. But it's a difference worth noting, and that will be the next video. But anyway, guys, I'm the Gamer Ninja, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm working with this new software. OBS released relatively recently some new upgrades to their recording software, so I'm using that. So I hope it turns out well for you guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope my voice eventually comes back. This lingering laryngitis is really, really bugging me because I sound like I'm sick, but I feel absolutely fine. But anyway, I'm the Gamer Ninja, and I hope you all have a great time. Bye-bye.